All right. Welcome back to the Tank Me Later podcast. This is episode 43, and Rhett Bauer is joining me to go through some Dynasty stuff. We're going to have a live Q&A here. Hopefully be able to do this more than just this one time, but this is going to be the very first one. And hopefully it'll bring some more Dynasty content to the industry where everybody can have a good place to ask questions and hopefully get some answer. I know Rhett's already awesome about answering Dynasty questions, both on Twitter and in a number of Discords and a number of leagues. So he's also here to answer your questions here.
Yeah. I'm awesome at responding to them. I don't know if my answers are always awesome, but
generally good answers, always responding. Hopefully it works out. If it's not, or if it doesn't work out, it's not Rhett's fault. That's what he's saying.
Yes.
Before we get in, we already have a few questions, but we're going to probably let a few more come in before we get started on those. We're going to try a fun exercise of discussing a Dynasty trade live on the show. So no idea how this is going to go, but I don't think we're far off from our initial discussions, which is why this is going to hopefully work out. It's not an hour back and forth of us just totally disagreeing on the value of how this should look. But Rhett, I'll let you make your initial offer to me.
All right. So this is in my weekly league that has 2 guards, 2 forwards, a center, and 2 flex spots. And so if those of you are not familiar with how weekly leagues work, you put your players in there and they just sit for an entire weekly matchup. And in our league, I have a pretty good team, but I was relying on Ben Simmons to be one of my only guards, which has not been favorable to me lately. I have Drew Holiday, Dante DiVincenzo, and Gordon Hayward as my other guards. And so I'm really hurting on the guard department. I've got guys like Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Deni Avdija, and Siakam as forwards. So trying to supplement that on the winning now side of things. And so Noah and his preseason brilliance with all of the Derek White hype had Derek White in every league I think I'm in with him, which is just absolutely fantastic. I love and respect that dedication to a player, as I have DeJounte Murray in every league but one, I think. And so I sent him Deni Avdija and stuff. I have a variety of stuff. I'm trying to get a deal for Derek White figured out. And so I think I sent Deni and Max Christie plus a couple other, like a pick maybe. I sent Deni and Pat Will, Deni and Ben Simmons was my most recent offer. And Noah came back asking what I would put either instead of Simmons or alongside Simmons. And so that is kind of where we are at right now.
Yeah, because I think I've slowly started to talk myself into Deni a little bit more. I have been low on him past couple of years. I think I liked him coming out of the drafts, and he's been pretty disappointing, but he's been better this year. And my team is very middle of the pack. I'm 14th right now. Looks like I'll sneak into the playoffs. Not bad enough to get a high pick, not good enough to be one of the contenders like Rhett's team. I have Lauri Markkanen, who's been hurt a little bit. Walker Kessler has been hurt a little bit. Bojan Bogdanovic, who's hurt a lot. Collin Sexton starting to play well. Derek White has been phenomenal. I think I have him in almost every dynasty league I'm in and 0 redraft leagues, which is, about the opposite of what you want. But not that he's bad in dynasty, but I think, redraft would have been a little nicer.
Can confirm industry pickup. I have him as he was my 6th round pick. I think I can confirm it's nice to have him.
Oh gosh. Yeah. That would have been nice to have. I could really use that right now instead of my Jordan Poole 4th round pick and industry pickup.
Oof.
It happens. But yeah, so I don't really know exactly what I want to do with this team yet, but I think moving Derek White while his value high is a good idea. I think I'm just hoping to get 1st round picks back. So if I'm not mistaken, you've already traded your 2024 first in that league.
Correct.
Which I don't remember the exact deal for that, but it's part of the reason you're 5th in the league. And I believe 15 games ahead of me in the standings. And so that means, is it the rule, the Stepien rule?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do have the 2024 second of the Fait Decompli, I think is what his team name is. I don't know where he is in the standings. Gotta go down. He is currently last, and so that will be it's him and my buddy Derek, the Indianapolis Olympians, are within one game of each other for last and second to last in like 6 or so games away from the third or fourth best lottery odds. And the thing with this league, though, too, is that I believe, we have 2 matchups, and so that 6-game deficit isn't as big as you might think, because that's you do 2 5-4s, the other gets 2 7-2s, and that's now like tied. I think that math checks out. But I have the 31st pick at the moment, but I think it's probably 31 35 at any point there.
Yeah, and looking at it, the way you got Denny and that pick was the massive Victor Wembanyama trade at the beginning of the year, where you got KD, Pascal Siakam, Anthony Davis for Wemby, which was pretty insane.
And Bilal. I sent out Kool. I think that goes underrated, especially with like at the beginning of the year. Yeah.
And Chris Duarte, Pacers legend. That's fair. You did have to part with him, so I know that hurt.
He's starting for the Kings now.
Okay. So a little bit more of an even trade, and it has worked out because now he's in line to potentially pick first this year. And then I actually got Derek White, as well as a first in 2025 from Mike Waterloo and Collin Sexton for Mark Williams. So now I have a chance. Yeah, I didn't love it at the time because I was like, I don't really like Collin Sexton, but he's been really good. So yeah, now I'm not opposed to swinging Derek White, but I think that 2024 second and your 2026 first would be an ideal return alongside Denny.
Yeah. And I think the funny thing about your team specifically is you have 3 players on the Jazz,
yes,
and then Boyan on the Pistons,
former Jazz legend,
and then you have AJ Griffin, who I thought would be really good. He has not played. You have Grady Dick and Jet Howard, who both are also not really playing, and then Mason Plumlee coming back from injury, and Duop Reith was a great pickup by you. So all I'm saying is you are currently in the playoff picture, but if you decided to pivot, you could plummet down the standings, especially as the Jazz, start getting players hurt, because it seems like that's the way they're going to go. So, just another little caveat there. The other thing I was looking at, I didn't know if you'd have any interest in moving a Boyan or a Harrison Barnes. I don't know for sure if I would be willing to pay for them, because like I said, I have tons of forwards, and even getting rid of guys like Denny, I still have Pat Will on the bench, and I have Neesmith on the bench. And so I got forwards out the wazoo. And so I wasn't sure what it would cost to get them, but I figured if you're going to go younger, that maybe that would be a good way to balance things out as well.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be opposed to moving either of them. Probably easier to get Harrison Barnes if you want to expand the trade, get Derek White and Harrison Barnes. Or are you talking about a separate deal?
I didn't know what sort of balancing act we'd be trying to pull off there. So I'm going to go ahead and send you Denny and the 2 picks, and then we can hash out the rest of that if needed. I didn't know if there were any other young players you liked from me. I've got a hodgepodge of them, like down to the Adama Sanogo, Isaiah Mobley, Kendall Brown, Justin Lewis, just absolute juggernaut of a minors eligibility group. So I didn't know if any of those guys were of interest to you.
Is Max Christie included in that group of young guys?
Man, I genuinely thought that Max Christie would end up starting for this Lakers team. And I still think that that's in the cards, because if you look at their roster, they have only so many players who can pass, dribble, and shoot and defend. And Max Christie is one of the 4 players who can do all of those things, including Austin Reeves, LeBron, and AD. And so Max Christie is not untouchable. However, depending on, like, if I'm sending all of my, my best pick this year and my 2026, that locks me out of moving any other picks until my 2028 becomes available. And so I'd rather not move Max Christie, especially not for a guy like Harrison Barnes.
And that's fair. Okay. So then what if it was Bogdanovich and Derek White for Christie, Denny, the second and the first?
I'm nervous about where Bogdanovich is going to end up going. If Bojan had guard eligibility, I think I would do that pretty easily just to get some scoring, some threes for my team, who is pretty rough in threes at the moment. But I don't know if Bojan at 34. He turns 35 in April. I'm probably going to stay away from Bojan
That's fair.
with Christie as the piece there, I think.
That's fair then. So we're looking at Derek White for Denny and 2 picks as of right now then.
Seems that way, yeah. And to be honest, like obviously White has been insane this year, and I don't think there's any reason to believe he wouldn't continue to be. But I love Denny. I've been on his hype train. He's just the exact kind of player I have problems quitting because he's a good passer, he's a good defender, and he can't shoot. Like that is a good, like that is exactly my kind of player. But I also think like if it was up to me, it would be Denny and Bilal. Like those would be the two main. Like obviously that's horrible shooting, but those are their 2 best players for where they want to end up going. Obviously Kuzma and Poole are where they are, but they are I think unserious is the buzzword for them, and that is exactly right.
Yeah. No, I think that's funny because the defending, passing, and can't shoot, like you also offered me Ben Simmons, so that really does
Correct. I told you. Yep.
That's funny. Cool. Yeah. You know what? I'll do it. Not saying I dislike it, but let's do it for the hype of the of doing it live on the show. Send me it. Let's do it. And I'll and then if anybody's interested that's in that league, Harrison Barnes and Bojan Bogdanovich would immediately be on the trade block. And I believe Collin Sexton would be as well.
Yeah. No, I think I genuinely do think it, like, obviously some people are probably going to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, that's way low for a guy who's like top 30 on the year, maybe even higher than that on White.
Yeah, he's
But
20th.
Like, a 2026 pick from a team that now has Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Pascal Siakam, and Ben Simmons. Like those are the guys I'm relying on to be good. And if you think that in 2 years that all of those guys are still going to be good, I would love your optimism, genuinely.
That was honestly like part of the reason I was looking at a future pick was that you have older guys that have injury history. Derek White will be 30 at the end of the year. So, and this is obviously he's playing phenomenal, but could be considered a sell high considering he's been kind of outskirts of top 100 or like just inside top 100 over the past few seasons. So,
yeah. Siakam turns 30 before this season is over. KD will turn 36 before next season starts. AD will turn 31 in March. Like Drew turns 34 in June. Like I'm gonna be so old so fast, and the only young pieces I will have include Max Christie, Aaron Nesmith, and Patrick Williams. Like that's gonna be it. And so your boy's really going for it, which was kind of the point of trading Wembanyama, right? Like I took him first overall in the startup. I didn't plan to trade him, but when a guy comes through and is like, "Hey, I've got AD and KD, would you trade Wembanyama for him?" I was like, "No." But you also have Siakam, and if I'm gonna trade now the best dynasty asset out there, I've got to be able to win it all, and that's kind of where we've ended up.
Yeah, and Derek White will help you do that even more, be able to push that agenda. And then the last question before I accept this trade is, since we're matched up this week, you're not just doing this to try and steal a win out of me and keep Derek White off playing against you.
I am currently 5-3-1 this week. And we both only have 4 games played. I've got AD and Siakam tonight to your Harrison Barnes, Bojan Bogdanovich, and Duop Reith. So I think I'll be okay. But if
this is Duop Reith erasure, and I won't stand for it.
You can sit down then. That's fine. No, I mean it doesn't have any. I honestly didn't even look to see if we were playing each other. Yeah. I think that's just a funny little twist on things, as these things usually go. Those are always the best.
Yep. All right. So I just locked in the trade. That has happened, and now we will actually get into questions because we have a handful to do. 15 minutes in, so we have 45 minutes to go through some of these. So the first one here from Guy. Collin Sexton, second year after injury, has been putting up great scoring and percentage numbers. What is his dynasty value coming up, and is it going to stay long-term? Rhett, where do you have Sexton currently ranked?
Yeah, so I just posted my updated dynasty rankings over on my Patreon, Roundball Rhetoric, and I'll answer the second question first. Is it going to stay long term? I think it's possible that it stays kind of where it is right now, which to me is in the same group as guys like Dante DiVincenzo, Isaiah Hartenstein, Malik Monk, Zubac, guys like that. I think he's also in the same group as guys like Grady Dick, Bryce Sensabaugh, Kobe Buffkin, Jalen Smith. So I have him in like a tier 14, which doesn't really mean anything until I give you a number for it. So 1 second. That is right around the 180 mark. And I think that that's pretty reasonable for where he projects to be just as a player in the league. Like, I don't know if he's a high level starter. Pretty confident that he's not, but he's an efficient scorer that can at least get some assists and not turn the ball over a ton. So I think he's probably around a top 200 dynasty asset, even though we've kind of seen him probably have his best season over in Cleveland.
Yeah, I have him 158th, so I'm a little bit higher on him. This year he's 145th in 9-cat, past 2 months, 103rd is from Basketball Monster. So I'm a little higher on him. I have like guys like Max Christie and Nikola Jovic right above him, Christian Brown, Spencer Dinwiddie, RJ Barrett right below him. So I think like you kind of hit it on the head with you're going to get points. You're going to get a couple of assists. He's not a great passer. He has been better as of late. And pretty efficient for a 6'2" guard that shoots as much as he does. So, but that's kind of what you're getting. He's not going to be much better. He's probably not going to get the opportunity to play 35 minutes a game and score 24 points a game ever again. I think the ideal role may be in sort of a 6-man role for him as kind of just an electric scorer off the bench on a contending team. That would probably be his best fit if he was on a winning team. Obviously, Utah is not a winning team right now. Like they're, I think, just outside the play-in tournament right now. So could he continue to provide top 100 value this season? Yes, he's still only 25, so like there's room for optimism there. But I think, he's not going to be somebody's starting point guard on a championship team or starting shooting guard. He's got to be kind of an electric scorer off the bench. I think that's probably the archetype that he fits.
Yeah, and I think the thing to look for is last year with the Jazz, right? He played 48 games, 24 minutes a game. And so he was at like 220 for 9-cat. And so he is a guy that, if his role and minutes go away, his value is like exponential, right? Like the more minutes and shots he get, it goes a steep climb. But that also works the other way, because if those minutes go down, then that volume is just a massive, massive hit. And even last year, he was hitting 51% from the field, 39% from three, 82% from the line. So he was a positive in points, assists, in both percentages, and still didn't crack the top 200. So I mean, you could just see the downside there, but efficient scoring is hard to come by. So even if the dynasty ranking isn't there, the value for your team specifically definitely could push up into the top 150.
Yeah, for sure. And he has improved a little bit on the assists, and the free throw percentage has been 88.5 this year, which is, I believe, by far the best of his career.
Yes.
Generally, it was kind of hovering around 81, 82%. So he's shown improvement. Could he show more? I'm not really seeing much more improvement as far as what he's producing, but it could just kind of hovering around what he's doing, like you said, could allow him to be valuable in specific categories with specific team builds. All right, we can do another question also from Guy. Tyler Herro still seen by a lot as mediocre at best, even for Dynasty. He's been putting top 50 numbers per game this season. Where will you rank him in Dynasty considering his age? Rhett, do you want to tell me where you have him ranked?
Yeah, I am notoriously low on Tyler Herro. I always have been, and I don't really apologize for it. I just don't think he's actually good. Like, I think he's a useful player that he kind of falls in like the Harrison Barnes type role to me, where it's like if you have Harrison Barnes, you are constantly looking to upgrade Harrison Barnes. And if you don't have Harrison Barnes, he's a forward, so it's a little bit different. But it's just like one of those guys where you're just constantly wanting to upgrade from him, but the rest of the league doesn't value him as much. And we've seen it because the Heat have not been able to pull off any of the 7 superstar trades that they've been trying to with Tyler Herro as the centerpiece. I do think that him being around a top 50 producer is probably about right. I mean, as long as he stays in the role that he has, but how many teams are going to give him 35 minutes a game? And I think like it's 20 shots, something like that. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's
18.9.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just think that that's pretty unrealistic for most teams. It just so happens that the Heat are devoid of scoring as a whole, so he fits in perfectly. So I think top 50 is fine for like per game, but I think towards Dynasty, I think he's around 75, and I think that that's probably about right.
Okay. Is it because he doesn't fit your archetype of plays defense, passes, and can't shoot? Because he doesn't play defense. Now, I'm not saying he's a horrible defender. He's not a horrible passer, but he can shoot. So maybe that's an issue.
Yeah, no, I think part of it is it's just volume driven, right? Like he's a pretty good rebounder for his size, which I think really helps. And obviously, being a good, assist and free throw percentage, like all that stuff. I do struggle with like the shooter type, like the Jordan Poole. I just can't never get on board with that because I don't think it's a winning type player. But I think part of it is that the league doesn't want to put him in the role that the Heat have him in. Otherwise, they would have been interested in getting him back as a centerpiece for one of their superstars. Mm-hmm. Right? Does that make sense? Like I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into that. I think that the Heat trying to upgrade as much as they are while also being better without him playing in some aspects says something to me.
Yeah, I have him actually at 47, so I am a little higher on him. I do like he is in a situation in Miami where they are struggling to trade him. He has the ultimate green light. He's kind of like free to shoot whenever, scores a lot, is capable of that. If they are able to swing a trade where they bring in a true superstar to play alongside Jimmy Butler and Bam, then Tyler Herro is probably going to a crappy team where he's also going to see the same volume and is able to shoot a lot. So I kind of see this as like he is benefiting from his scenario a good bit, and he is he's a talented player that is taking advantage of his opportunity. I don't disagree with like the idea of him. Like if I were building a team that I'm saying, okay, I want to go win a championship in the NBA, like I don't think Tyler Herro would be not like for what he is, probably like a third option on a team. I don't think I would want him to be a third option on a championship team. Or a second scoring option, which is actually probably closer to what he is on this team. I believe he's their second leading scorer just by a little bit over Bam. So, yes, I agree with that. But I think, looking at it if looking at dynasty rankings as the next 5 years, winning now and winning 5 years from now and every year in between, I think Herro being 24 and then being 29 at the end of this outlook, I think it's a good spot for him. Now, if the scenario changes dramatically, then yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to drop him down the rankings. But him being a top 50 guy this year after sitting in trade rumors for, pretty heavy trade rumors for months over the summer and even earlier than that, I think I'm fine with him as a top 50, but I think this probably is kind of his peak, which is kind of also he's playing his peak basketball.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with the whole like, hey, he's 24 putting up top 50 numbers. Why is he top 75 in a dynasty ranking that should be factoring in the future? It's just I just don't believe in his role on good teams, and I will almost always undervalue those players. And like I say that constantly. And so like if anybody's surprised by that when they look at my rankings, like please just don't take that into consideration. I do have a little bit of bias against that sort of stuff, but I also just think the league has shown us over and over that they just don't value those kinds of guys. And even a guy like Jordan Poole, who's like, oh man, he's going to be awesome. He's going to go to a bad team and he's going to shoot 42% from the field and get 0 steals and 0 blocks because he does not care about anything other than getting shots up and actually getting done with the game so he can go do other things.
That's quite the comparison there, but I think that's also important when looking at dynasty rankings and who's ranking them. Is like you have certain things you look for, but also that kind of helps. I don't know. I guess the community in general having different perspectives on things. So like that's totally fine that you're lower on him. I get it. So there's probably I know the first two guys that seem to be higher on than you, but I'm sure there's other guys that kind of flips, but we can look at another guy that kind of, I don't know, fits sort of the same criteria, or at least does in my mind. What is your opinion on Anthony Simons, another guy that is a high volume scorer slash shooter? Where do you have him ranked? I guess to start.
I have Simons at 67, and I do admit that that is probably too low. So actually, let me go through this a little bit. I have tiers. I have all of my stuff set in tiers, and so Anthony Simons is at the back end of tier 7, which spans from 57 to 71. So Simons could be anywhere in there. Herro is at the top of a tier that goes from 72 down to 87, and so there's a difference between the two in my eyes. Simons, I think, is more capable of being a primary option on offense, like running an offense, not just doing his own thing within the offense, if that makes sense. Like, I think Simons, they're not that much different. And you could probably argue that Herro has a better fantasy game because he rebounds and gets more steals. But I think Simons, with the volume that he has, which again you could argue changes with the role, Simons' volume is pretty absurd, and his free throw percentage is just elite. Um, I don't think there's probably that much of a difference between them, but I think Simons is closer to a building block with Portland than Herro is to the Heat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like Simons more. He actually is 46th in my ranking, so like one rank above Tyler Herro. I think in my mind they are similar, not exactly what they do, but kind of what they produce with a little bit more, I'd say, playmaking from Simons, and also probably a better opportunity for him to just straight up produce because even though Miami kind of gives him the ultimate green light, Herro isn't ever going to be the first option on that team when everybody's healthy, whereas Simons is, in my opinion, clearly the number one option on that team. Maybe a 1A to Jeremy Grant 1B as far as who should be kind of the leading scorers or leading producers this season. But obviously kind of going through a rebuild, who knows what's going to happen with Portland at the deadline. I'm assuming they're going to hold on to Simons and keep him around and that he would be part of their future, not just a guy to swing for more picks. But yeah, I like Simons a lot. I've known about him since high school, and I think when I hear about players when I'm young and then I see them doing something in the NBA, then I end up being very high on them just because I've known about them longer. That's why I'm really high on Devin Vassell as well, because he played in my region in high school, so played against him a few times a year. Never thought he was going to be an NBA guy, and now he's like getting a lot of money because he's really good at what he does. So that's really cool. But another guy that's just kind of in my mind, I'm higher on.
Yeah, I almost have the opposite effect with some of these guys. Like I've played with or against Trace Jackson Davis, Dylan Windler, and a couple other guys from like the Indiana basketball region. Trace I really liked. Unfortunately, traded him for Gordon Hayward, which was dumb, and I knew it at the time, but I needed a guard. And then the Windler, it's one of those things. It's like, man, if I can play like kind of with these guys, like I don't know about all of that, but no, it is cool to see guys from high school or just like in general area where you kind of have a personal touch to them and just and just follow that along. But the fact that are you higher on Simons and Herro than you are Vassell?
I don't think so. Hold on, let me see. No, I have Vassell at 40. I'm high on him.
Heck yeah.
Which might be even. I mean, it is higher than those guys, but yeah, I think I really like his his general like production, what he's produced, his talent, the way he plays. Like I enjoy all that and I like all that. Think it fits with winning basketball and kind of is the number 2 option on a Spurs team. So situation and talent. No, I'm higher on Vassell. Where do you have him ranked?
I have Vassell in tier 6, which is from 44 to 56. I have Vassell around like Porzingis, Kyrie, and Brunson are the start of 6. And then I've got Jalen Johnson, Jalen Duren, Brandon Ingram, Jabari Smith, and Brandon Miller. I think Vassell has a perfect game to complement as a number 2 versus guys like Simons and Herro, where I don't. Like if that volume goes away, then you're gonna struggle. I think Vassell's improved efficiency this year and historically defensive stats, maybe not so much in the NBA thus far, other than this year. But no, I love Vassell. I think he's so underrated as a dynasty asset and as a player in general.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fantasy community really likes Vassell, so it's always funny to me. I'll, just be scrolling on Twitter and see like Spurs fans just complaining about him and wanting like trashing on him, and basically everybody that's not Wemby trashing on. It's like, well, I would kind of take him out of that and like just say like trash on everybody else and not him and Wemby. And probably not Trey Jones as much. I get that they have other guys that they're trying to figure things out or whatever, but Vassell does take like tough shots. So I'm sure if you don't know that he can actually hit those, that it looks bad. But
yeah, no, I think it was where was it? Who put it out there? And I quote tweeted it. It was Basketball Index top 5 guards and 3-point shot quality. Devin Vassell takes the toughest threes of any guard in the NBA, followed up by Luka Doncic, Tyrese Maxey, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Devin Booker. One of those things is not like the other, and it's not Vassell.
I'll let you fill in the blank for who that other one might be.
He's got cryptocurrency as his contract. About that.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, no, definitely the one that seems to be the outlier there. Yeah. But we can move on to, I guess we're going to hit another Kentucky guard here so we'll read the question. I acquired quickly 3 weeks before the trade. Like, good job. Who are the next breakout candidates? So, Rhett, I just real quick. So I'm wearing my Emmanuel Quickly Knicks shirt today.
I love that.
I got this. Let's see. So my wife and I went to New York for Christmas just a few days before. So I got it then. This lasted like a week and a half before he got traded, which is, tends to happen to me where I get players' shirts or jerseys and they get traded pretty quickly after. I got a Cam Reddish Hawks jersey about a month before he got traded. So this was my new record for getting a shirt. And so if you ever want anybody off your team, just let me know. I'll get a jersey.
Yeah, no kidding. You can see I've got Fultz Magic, which won't be a thing. DeJounte Murray Spurs, which won't be a thing. Paul George somewhere.
Yeah, this is the red one.
Yeah, Paul George Pacers, and then Trey Murphy as a Pelicans jersey, which is not going to be a thing. He's going to be a Pacer here soon. I'm going to speak it into existence. So if you want to get a Trey Murphy jersey, I would really appreciate it.
That'll help you out. And you already got the Anthony Edwards 5. I see. I have an Anthony Edwards 1. So if players, this is also players change their number after that's great too. But where do you break out? First, actually, where do you have Quickly now after the trade? Because he's a guy that I really liked, like his talent. I was kind of on board with, hey, he's really good, but as long as he's in New York and he's the sixth man, like his upside's kind of capped. And now that he is kind of the point guard of his own team, it's not quite the Tyrese Maxey breakout, but he's another Kentucky guard that played alongside Maxey that's quick and can shoot. Where do you have him ranked now?
I have Quickly right near Tyler Herro, actually. They're a couple spots separated, same tier, along the lines of guys like Austin Reeves, Jalen Suggs, Kobe White, actually in the same tier, and Jordan Poole as well. So there's a player type firmly
there we
in
go.
that group that I have such a hard time trying to evaluate. But no, before Quickly was traded, I kind of priced in that he would be, just because it just seemed logical, right? It's like, are you going to play Quickly and Brunson together? No. Are you going to trade for a star? Yes. It's like, what is going to happen with that? And the same thing kind of with RJ Barrett, had him in there. So I have Quickly in that same group. Where do you have him?
I have him at 61. So I guess about a little over a round behind Herro and Simons. I have right above him Onyeka Okongwu and Trey Murphy, and right below him Brandon Miller and Asar Thompson.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I thought about bumping Quickly up another tier, but I don't know. Like, I've got guys like Fred VanVleet, Jimmy Butler, LeBron, Claxton, Lively, Mark Williams, Siak. Like, those are all guys that are in that other tier, and I just don't think Quickly is there. You could argue whether Simons is, or you could argue whether OG is. Like Keegan Murray, you could probably push some of those guys out and put quickly up there if you wanted to. But I was worried about the playoffs last year. I think that was notable. He's young, so obviously you could project some improvement in there, but he's 24 and a half. Like he's not, I don't think he's as young as some people are making him out to be. Same age as Simons and Herro. So I don't know. I have a hard time trying to get too far ahead of guys like that, because I feel like once you start getting into that top 60, top 50 range, you better be a locked in asset, because that just gets, you can get in some dangerous territory trading guys in that range for a player who has not yet proven to be there.
Yeah, that's fair. That's why I have him right at 61, right outside that top 60
There you
threshold. But is there any other breakout candidates that you have been kind of eyeing without, I guess, showing all your cards? I guess guys that you like their talent but haven't been shown the opportunity, kind of thing. I mean, we already kind of know one with Trey Murphy. I'm assuming he's pretty much the top of your list.
Yeah, I think Murphy is one. He has been all season. He's kind of underwhelmed, actually. I'm still incredibly high on, guys like, let's see. I've got Amin and Asar both in my top 40, which maybe is too high, but I just think their fantasy games are just going to be absolutely insane. I think as far as guys who are like kind of off the radar, and I haven't gone through to see how I differ in these guys from everybody else, so maybe I'm not breaking new ground, but Taylor Hendricks needs to be on everybody's target list, which maybe be a little bit difficult. I still think that a guy like, where'd he go? I think Jaden Ivey should be higher than most people have him as far as an evaluation goes. And then I can't quit Pat Will. I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry. Those are players that every team is looking for, that size and that kind of skill set. And so I'll go down with the ship on those.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that gets Kawhi comparisons should, I guess, be, even though
I
he's
have never
not
once
Kawhi.
made that.
That's good. That's good. That would be an unfair, I guess. That's the other thing, is calling somebody Kawhi Leonard directly out of the draft is not exactly the most fair comparison for their career, because then they'll be seen as a bust pretty much no matter what they do. I'll give. Here's a guy that I really liked. He's actually been able to play a little bit more recently, which I think is kind of why I like him. Vince Williams in Memphis. I think I was on the RotoWire pod with Dr. A earlier and was talking about him playing, like getting more minutes because Ja's out. And it's probably because he's a lefty that's a good defender that also wears number 5. But I really think he's Memphis's Herb Jones, and I think he's going to play a lot of minutes this year now with Ja out, and then could be kind of their starting small forward moving forward. So I really like him, and I think this is kind of a buy opportunity. Like this moment right now is a buy opportunity, because the next few games his value is probably going to skyrocket, which is going to be hard to get him. I'm trying to see if I can find another guy. But
so
go ahead.
While you're looking, I think Vince Williams is one of the perfect candidates for a guy who is a buy and a sell at the same time, which makes him such an interesting target for people, because everybody knows that Ja is out for the season, right? And so obviously there's oh man, he's going to get so much opportunity, and then the people who have him are like, man, maybe I can sell high and assume that his role goes away when Ja comes back, so it is a short-term deal. I think both can be true, and so it's just about finding that right balance of what your team is trying to do this year and moving forward to know whether or not you should be buying or selling.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it just depends on how your league mates view him. I'll give one more, and I'm definitely going to want your insight on this because it's your own Indiana Pacer, Isaiah Jackson, who I think has had some really good games recently. Do you think that he's just going to continue to be Miles Turner's backup for the rest of this season, or potentially years down the road? Or do you think there's a chance that he's traded at the deadline?
All right. So let me peel back the curtain a little bit on the Pacers situation. So Isaiah Jackson this summer will be extension eligible, I believe, and so that that has to be taken into consideration a little bit. The other part of it, though, is that Jalen Smith has a player option this summer. And so I don't know if anybody has been paying attention to Jalen Smith, but he has been playing pretty darn well and is currently starting and doing way better than he did to start last year when he was starting, which was atrocious, and I hated every second of it. But he has a $5.4 million player option. And Noah, as an outside observer, I don't know how much you paid attention to him. Do you think Jalen Smith has been playing at a value that exceeds $5.4 million for next year?
I would say that exceeds $5.4 million. Yes, but I don't know about how much more. But I think also in my mind, I think Jalen Smith stinks, but he has been playing
Fair.
better. That's fair.
Yes. So that all of that to say, they're gonna like actively either be forced to pick Isaiah Jackson this summer, or they're going to pick Isaiah Jackson this summer. Because if Jalen Smith declines that player option, obviously the Pacers can retain him, but there's a decision coming up that I don't think a lot of people are giving time, because why would you? It's the Pacers backup center. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But I think Isaiah Jackson is a great shout for this, because he is in a position where it's currently a little bit muddled because there is some sort of timeshare, but his fantasy game can be just insane in not very many minutes. Like, he could play 25 minutes a game and be absurd, because he's right now at 158 and 9 cat in 14 minutes a game. It's on the back of 1.2 blocks and elite field goal percentage, but he can be very, very good as just an overall big man plus some steals without killing your free throw percentage. And so I think that's a great call.
Yeah, I think he's pretty similar to the like Onyeka Okongwu. I think Okongwu was like 74th last year in like 21 minutes per game. So I think it's kind of like that. Do you think, one last Pacers question, do you think that there's a chance that Miles Turner is traded at this point, or do you think it's kind of he's locked in now that they're actually like a good team and going to be a playoff team, that Miles Turner's there, or that Isaiah Jackson has a chance to be Tyrese Halliburton's pick and roll partner for a decade?
Yeah, that's something that I know I've talked with a lot of I don't want to say Pacers people, like I've talked to the organization, but people that talk around the Pacers, or right for the Pacers, I guess. I think Miles is fairly locked in for this year, but if his contract, I don't know. I don't know if he's like a lock to be the long-term center, especially with the contract that it seems like centers are getting now. Miles could push up into like the 25 to 27 million after this contract when he's turning like 28. And I don't know how excited I would be to pay that sort of contract to a big, but Miles has also been awesome with Halliburton. So I don't know. And there aren't very many players who can do what Miles can do on both ends, even if he does leave some to be desired elsewhere. I think he's going to stay where he is, but I don't think it's out of the question to see Miles traded for, maybe to disperse that money into other positions and have a guy like Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith for half of the money, and just let that kind of be a center by committee.
Yeah. Well, I think we like Isaiah Jackson's upside. We'll see if that situation works out. We'll keep moving. Shaden Sharp's perception is very divided in the industry. An excellent window to sell high ? Rhett, where do you have Sharp ranked?
I have Sharp. I don't know about pretty high. He's in the same tier as Simons. Actually, he's right now at 59, somewhere 57 to 71 in there. And the reason for that, for me, is efficient scoring as a young player. Is something that I value, like a young player, like just turned 20 years old, not quite even 21 yet, young player. I think that obviously he's not really done that this year, but he's shown flashes of being able to score efficiently. And so I think I'm kind of banking on that. His athleticism is insane. And I think that just like, even before he does anything, he already has an advantage with the ball in his hands or not. And I think that makes life way easier. And I think getting guys like Simons and Scoot to to like spread that pressure out helps. I could definitely see an argument that Sharp is too high. I would get that, but I think his fantasy game should be so well-rounded once he actually gets into his prime that having him up towards the 60s kind of makes some sense.
Yeah, I have him at 84, and I think I struggled with having him right in the middle of, is he going to be a Tyler Herro, Anthony Simons,
Yeah.
That kind of upside, or is he going to be RJ Barrett and Keldon Johnson? Like, what's he going to be? Is he going to be just a scorer? And, maybe, I know RJ is not an efficient scorer, poor free throw shooter as well. Like, is he going to be kind of on that side of being a scorer, or is he going to be able to do enough in other categories to be able to provide well-rounded value, or just kind of a points guy? I think my dynasty rankings are very tailored to category leagues. I don't have like points league specific one, but you'd obviously have more value in a points league because we've already seen him score at a ridiculous rate at times in stretches. But he's averaging 5 boards, 3 assists, 2 threes, almost a steal per game this year. Like, that's decent around across the board. I think that's why I have him a little bit lower than Simons and Tyler Herro, but obviously significantly higher than an RJ. But I think he's kind of in the middle there for me.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. And I think that it all comes down to philosophy for a guy like Sharp, because he is almost entirely projection at this point, and where you think that projection ends up on top of how you value the current production you're sacrificing while you wait for that projection is going to completely change the lens with which you look at Sharp, because I could see an argument for him being closer to the 100 mark than the 50 mark, because you just don't what am I getting from him over the next 2 years while he figures it out? Like, we're still waiting on RJ Barrett to figure it out. And I'm still waiting on it, but I know that some people are completely over it. So
yeah, I'm not doing much more waiting on RJ Barrett, but the other part of this question was, is this an excellent window to sell high? I don't think that is like what you should be doing with Sharp at this point. I don't think you should be selling high. I don't know, maybe you disagree, but I think that this
depends on how high.
Time to sell. Yeah, that's okay. That's fair. If somebody really likes him and is offering you 7 firsts, I think it's kind of hard to say no. But
if I could sell Sharp for a Brandon Miller or a Jabari Smith or a Jalen Duren or guys like that, yeah, I'm probably just going to go ahead and do that. Like, if I could add a little bit and get a Thompson twin or a Vassell or a Franz, Jalen Johnson, like guys like that, yeah, I would do it. But I'm not going to sell Sharp for an Emmanuel Quickly. I think I don't think I would do that at the moment. I would get it depending on where your team is at, but I don't think that's really the move at the moment. But again, it comes down to what the deal is, where your team's at.
Yeah. All right. Do you think that it's possible to be in quote unquote win now mode with Dame while punting assists, or should I try to ship him for someone else? If so, who should I target? And then there's a second part to this. I also need more threes and shooting guard and small forward. Do you think that I should target someone with a trade, or rather look to stream threes every week from the waiver wire? Who is a good target and punt assist build in this case? Kind of a loaded question here. I guess we'll start with the beginning. Is it possible to be in win now with Dame while punting assists, or is there somebody else that you prefer? I guess potentially that's at shooting guard or small forward that would be better for a punt assist build.
Punting assists with Dame isn't ideal, but he's so good at points, threes, and free throw percentage that I could see it working. Assists are so hard to get, so I would understand pivoting to a punt assist, but I'm not sure who you're going to trade Dame for that's going to be more helpful for you without taking a pretty considerable hit in something else that's important. If your team needs threes and you're bad at assists, then I think that gets into a broader question about how your team is built, which is not a knock at all. Like, it happens, but I'm not really sure who else I would target in that case, unless it's like a Lauri Markkanen where you're getting a comparable level of threes at a different position, but better efficiency, lower turnovers to compensate for the lost assists.
Just looking like guys that I have not like similarly ranked, but do you think, because I have Dame at 34 in my dynasty ranks and I have Desmond Bane at 28. Do you think, I think that's a pretty easy yes, but I would also probably attach something with Dame to get Desmond Bane because I think that kind of fits that mold.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. I think J-Dub is also a pretty good target for that. If you're
Hmm.
looking, that doesn't help your threes at all. But I think if I'm going to be moving Dame for a punt assist, I would try to find somebody who's good at both percentages, depending on how your team is built, and not worry about the threes as much. If you're struggling with threes with Dame, I have a very hard time believing you're ever going to get you're going to get back to a reasonable amount. You didn't mention your league size as well, so that could change it. If you're
Yeah.
streaming in a 12 team, you could probably get your threes up there a little bit, but in a dynasty league, I'm also not sure uh, how available your waiver wire is.
Yeah. And yeah, so we'll move on because I think we have a few more to hit and we're running short on time. But just sticking with the theme of J Dub, what do you guys think about J Dub and how high do you guys think his peak can be in a standard points league? And where do you rank him in Dynasty? Rhett, I'll let you start with his Dynasty rank. And if you want to mention how you feel about him in points leagues, feel free.
Yeah, Jalen Williams, I've got him in a group from 30 to 40. I think that is probably category leagues because he's a very favorable 9-cat player. I don't know how well he's going to do in points leagues unless his steals get back to that absurd level. I know in standard points leagues, just being good across the board isn't really that good. Shout
Yeah.
out to Tobias Harris. But I mean, I could see J Dub being a multi-time all-star. I think he's got the perfect kind of game to just win basketball games across a variety of different ways. And that just typically leads to like, I know I've seen some, I don't know if it was Matt or somebody else had Jimmy Butler as kind of like a high end sort of realistic outcome. I think Jaylen Brown is right there, just a more efficient Jaylen Brown, which is a really freaking good
Yeah.
player.
Yeah, I have him at 35th, so like that pretty
Yeah.
much lines up with where you have him. And I think I agree with the idea of like points leagues. I don't play in as many points leagues, but 18.2 points per game this year, 3.9 boards, 4.1 assists, 1.1 steals, which have been kind of trending up. The efficiency is really like a big part of his game and like just being efficient from the floor. I mean, not
Yep.
many wings are going to shoot 54% from the floor. Like it's hard to find. So
Yep.
that and the steals is really what does it, which is kind of, I don't know. In points leagues, it's more about the scoring, obviously, but it's not bad as a scorer, but it's not quite where you're getting the majority of his value.
I think the thing for him, watch OKC games, watch how they use him, where and how he does. Him going right at Jason Tatum to close out that game the other night, and just bumping Jason Tatum off of his spot and finishing and just making a pull up mid ranger with SGA on the court. Like
Crazy.
he is legit, and I think the game is going to follow, even if he may not ever get up to into like the top 20 of dynasty rankings or per game rankings. I think he's a very legit piece.
Yeah. And we got a follow up on the, I guess this was the Dame move. 12 team keeper dynasty, just 160 players roster. So that does help with the waiver wire. Donovan Mitchell for Dame. I would absolutely trade, whether it's keeper or dynasty or redraft. I
Yeah.
think I would trade Dame to get Donovan Mitchell. So I like that if you're able to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly reasonable target. Like you said, with the threes efficiency and the steals, you still get some assists in there, but it's not like you're looking to be allergic to a certain stat just because you're trying to punt it. I'd be curious what your options are to add to Dame because there's zero chance I'm sending Donovan Mitchell for Dame straight up if I have Mitchell. But hey, if you can pull it off, more power to you.
Yeah. All right. Do you think Reith will stick around in the league? That's Duop Reith. Unless I actually haven't looked up to see how his name is pronounced. So hopefully I'm not saying that too wrong, but pretty old, but advanced stats seem to really like him. He has the size and he has the shooting. I've liked what I've seen. How do you feel about him?
I have a really hard time with guys that come out of nowhere, are old, and are on bad teams. Like I don't know how he's gonna turn 28 in June. This is his only NBA season. I think he's worthwhile. I think he's definitely worth having, especially because Portland seems to like him, and Ayton is obviously going to be hurt. So we're getting a pretty darn good sample size, but it's also I don't know how much to really put into it. I don't even know where I have him in my dynasty rank. He's pretty firmly outside the top 200, I would say. So that kind of gets into a wide range of players. I think if I have him, I would hold unless I'm going to get a legitimate dynasty asset back.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. It's Dwop Wreath. There's no reason to emphasize the ooh. It's just Dwop Wreath, and I have him 249. I think partially a little biased because I was able to get him in. I think that was your weekly pun intended league that I was able to. Or I guess it's weekly round ball rhetoric league now, not puns intended. But so I like him a little bit more. But yeah, being almost like 27 and a half, almost 28, definitely lowers his value, even if he has played pretty well. We're going to go to a trade evaluation right here. Dynasty points trade, Darius Garland, Mikal Bridges, Bam. And I'm guessing that is a 2025 first that is probably top 2. I'm thinking it's translating weird into the because
could be a username there as well for the team that it's from.
Potentially. And then for Tyrese Maxey, J-Dub, and Claxton, how are you feeling about that?
Garland side without a second thought.
Yeah, no, I think so. Especially that's a top 2 pick in 2025. I believe that's supposed to be what's the guy's name?
Yep. Oh my
gosh. Both of us messing this up is not ideal.
Wow, holy cow. I think you took the idea from me and now it's just like sitting up here. Well, while you're looking it up, I'll say
Cooper Flag.
Not C. I was like, why am I thinking Collin Sexton? That's not it. Garland and Maxey are comparable. Maxey's ahead of Garland, of course. J-Dub and Bam are comparable to me. Mikal Bridges and Claxton are not comparable to me. And then you get a first on top of that. So I would much rather have the comparable assets and the top 2 pick in a very stacked draft. I can see an argument if you're winning right now because Garland is obviously very hurt, but I do not think you should have to add that much of a pick to get those guys if you are indeed the side that's sending the Garland and the pick.
Yeah, I agree, especially because it is a points league. I think that kind of makes it pretty easily. Like Mikal Bridges is going to be better in a points league than Jalen Williams. Like I wouldn't agree in category, but I think in points league, I'd go Mikal and Bam easily over J-Dub and Claxton. And then Garland Max is pretty comparable. And the pick, yeah, I agree with that. Is a Trey Murphy breakout just going to have to wait until next season?
Probably. They've got so many guys, and I think it depends on what you're waiting for him to break out with, right? Are you waiting for him to be a superstar? That's going to have to wait because he's just not going to get the amount of shots. Are you looking for him to just be Michael Porter Jr., but a little bit better? That can happen towards the tail end of this year now that he's healthy. On the year, he's only played 26 minutes a game, and he's still inside the top 100. He's a 33, 35-minute-a-night player on every other team in the league. He just can't play that much because the Pelicans have to try to figure out a way to get Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels and Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson and Jose Alvarado and CJ McCollum. And they've got so many guys that it's still time to buy Trey Murphy because he's a guy who is going to be favorable in 9-cat because he doesn't turn the ball over, but high level spacing with good rebounding and efficient scoring with decent steals and blocks is going to have insane value when he gets up to the minutes that he should be getting.
And then when we get the at the trade deadline, the Buddy Hield and picks for Trey Murphy trade, what happens then?
Look, man, you see what Buddy Hield is doing with Tyrese Halliburton? What do you think? What do you think Trey Murphy's going to do?
And then they get their nice spacing veteran to help them make a playoff push. I think we can probably sell him on Buddy Hield to make that happen.
I mean, if you want to give him a call, I would be more than happy to listen to back you up.
All right, another one from Trevor Brown. How do we evaluate Kobe White, who I think you said you have him ranked higher than I did. I have him right at 99. I don't remember where you said you had him ranked.
That's around the same range. I think a little bit higher than that, up into the high 80s.
Okay. Yeah, I think my opinion is that he's playing really well in what has been a pretty good opportunity for him, but even as the opportunity has been less ideal, like Zach LaVine's back, played 36 minutes last night, but Kobe White still led the team in scoring with 27 points. I think he's legit and here to stay, but the production has been around top 100 value. So it's like, I think this is his breakout. Like this is what he is now. Like he is a top 100 asset, and that's probably as high as he's going to go. but he's still young, so he can do this for a really long time.
Yeah, I think it's funny when you start looking at this because it's like, okay, you've got Anthony Simons, you've got Kobe White, you've got Collin Sexton. Like, what are the differences? It's not Charmander to Charizard. It's like different levels. It's like different kinds
Yeah.
of things of the same kind of flavor. I think that Kobe White is good. I think it's awesome that he broke out the way that he did. I think I would hesitate to count on him as a lead guard moving forward, even though he's doing it this year. He's doing it for the Bulls.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I need to change my rankings because of it, because I don't know how much I believe in that as a long-term thing, but he's worth having for sure.
Yeah, I think he kind of fits that mold of, I don't think I'd want to have him as a starter if I'm trying to build a team moving forward, but he's playing well as a starter.
Yeah.
So what does his role look like in
Yeah.
a few years? And is it different if he's playing on a team that's good?
Yeah, I mean, I think him being on that team, locked into that contract, is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's an interesting one. It's nice to see him score at this level with this kind of defensive attention without Zach LaVine, so you can at least bank on that being there. It's just the scale of whether it's going to progress forward at the same rate or if he's going to regress into more of a sixth man or sharing the ball kind of a guy. It's kind of comes down to you.
Yeah. And we'll wrap up with one more quick question from Dynasty legend himself at DBC Jason on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer. The people are saying that Brandon Pajemski is breaking out with Chris Paul's injury / trade.
I love that
Rhett,
Jason's talking about himself in the third person with the people there. I love it. No, I think that's the biggest breakout is that Steve Kerr seems to trust him. Like that's the whole deal. Like Steve Kerr is willing to play him. I think that it's very likely that he ends up having a sort of breakout season, breakout second half of the season, I suppose.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm not sure the Warriors can make any sort of trade that actually makes them significantly better. And if they do, it's not going to be at the guard positions, right? Like it could very well be Steph Curry, Pods, insert player, insert player, insert player. Like I think that those two would probably be your best bets. Clay is probably in there too, but regardless, I just think a breakout after a Chris Paul injury is absolutely in the cards, Jason, even though I know that you single-handedly are pushing this agenda.
Where do you have Pods ranked?
I think I have him in hundreds. I have him at 90 right now, which is a range from 88 to 104. I think a guy like him who can just do a little bit of everything is a guy that I would want to get in early on, because once it starts happening, it's going to be impossible to get him.
Yeah, and I have him at 87. I've really liked what he's already done when he's gotten the opportunity this season, and it should just be even more of an opportunity that lasts longer with Chris Paul out of the lineup for however long he's out. So, sweet, Rhett, that's going to do it for this first Q&A. Hopefully we can keep doing these maybe once a month or so to be able to answer some Dynasty questions for everyone that's interested. But Rhett, before we go, is there anything that you have exciting coming up on your page or anywhere we can check out your work?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Rhett_Bauer. You can see there on the screen. If you are interested in my Patreon, it's linked in my bio. I think it's also on Twitter at bball_rhetoric with 2 T's, because that's my name. I like to think that I'm funny and smart in that way. But if you're interested in any of my Dynasty stuff, I have 450-ish players. I've got rookie rankings. I've got that Dynasty Pyramid, which does tiers all stacked together for players of equal trade value, down to a list, down to separated out into different ages and stuff. It's a lot of cool stuff. So check it out. Very interested to hear your thoughts on all of that. And I'm working on something pretty big that is taking me forever, because it is. I keep trying to make it bigger than what it is. So just be on the lookout for that. It's gonna be some fun stuff.
Be on the lookout. Rhett always does awesome work, and I know I'm excited to check it all out. And this mystery project, I'm sure, will be exciting. So I'm excited to see what that is. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Tank Me Later podcast. Make sure you said follow at Rhett_Bauer on Twitter or X, wherever you prefer. At Noah Rubin 22 is where you can find me at FBI Basketball. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode, and we will see you next time.